have one final, and I'm not trying to like quiz you or something, but I have one final question in this vein, and you're welcome to elaborate as much as you want, or just say one or the other. But do you think you prefer Warhammer Fantasy or Warhammer 40K?
40K. Like,
and that's what I've always thought.
Yeah,
because
I actually, but I started in fantasy. Like, I liked the artwork and the miniatures of the fantasy more, but I actually hated the way the rules were structured, because when I got into Warhammer Fantasy, they were still done by battle trays, which meant that you needed like 20 of the same guy in a little rectangle, and the whole rectangle moved forward as a unit. So it played a lot more like what's the game that I just played recently that was Warhammer Fantasy with the orcs, and when it was Orc Game Time, and the Total War, the Total War game, where it's a unit of units. The Total War games actually are a really good representation of what Warhammer Fantasy Battle played out like. Where you would equip a whole tray. Now in 40K, you still equip a whole squad, but they're all individual models that you move kind of separately and can change their location. They have to remain so close to each other, but they didn't fit all on a square tray or something, right? And I didn't like the square tray idea because it stressed my marginal funding as a 14-year-old miniatures collector.
Right.
But the 40K stuff was individual models, so I could buy them 2 at a time and still feel like I was making progress.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think overall I like the Warhammer Fantasy is not nearly as dark and gritty as 40K
That's
is.
I mean, not to call it whimsical, because it's not quite that either,
Right.
but it seems like the greenskins in Warhammer Fantasy are just kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're still vicious and they still do brutal things, and they're still dangerous, but they're also kind of just funny because they're so ridiculous, I
mean, in 40K they double down on that, but they double down on it in the way that, like, if a B movie had a AAA budget, would double down on it, right? Like, and just a lot of the other content is a lot more fighting for survival against the grim darkness of the future sort of thing, where in Warhammer Fantasy it's kind of like everybody on Earth just fighting wars because we want to fight. We want that territory or whatever,
Well, so you may know this. So I didn't I read just a couple of days ago. I guess the Warhammer storyline is like over. Like they officially brought it to a 40K.
It is. I guess it's technically kind of 41K now. Or 42K ish. I have been tracking some, because I still keep my thumb on the pulse of miniature hobby, but I am not as deeply involved in it as I used to be. I mostly still like the miniatures and wish that I could afford to collect them and spray paint them with, not spray paint, but airbrush them with like color changing. Like, for anybody out there, do a 2-color chameleon highlight airbrush on Tau. Give me like green and purple, or purple and pink 2-tone Tau with like black undertones. That's my dream, is to be able to collect and really paint some exquisite, but and the lore is still kind of good, but I am actually not that huge into like the 40K fantasy books and everything. But I know they just went through, or are in the middle of, a massive rebrand where all of the races, like the Eldar, are no longer the Eldar, they're the Eldari. And it's also like the Psychic Awakening. So that I know is kind of going on, where the Chaos Gods are pouring through big time and everybody is getting Psychers now, which is upsetting the universe greatly, because it's basically the idea of like magic used to be rare and now it's not, is now Psychers used to be rare and now your next door neighbor can have telekinesis. So like that's upsetting the universe. It's happening against all of the races, which is changing them all differently. It makes orcs more powerful. It makes everybody more powerful. But as far as like that, I don't know if that's coming to a conclusion or not. I mean, there's
no. What I read, the guy was, and again, I didn't read what I read what this guy wrote, but I didn't read what he's referencing. Right. But he was at least the way I understood it in reading what he had written was that like the universe just ends at some point. Like there's just a finality to it. And that like it's because what he was writing about is that he appreciates that in 40K, like it's all kind of for naught. Like it's kind of a hopeless war that they're
Right.
trying to fight, but yet they still sacrifice and still try, and just kind of, the implications of that. Um, anyway, all of that was just to say I thought it was an interesting. I thought it was interesting, if that's actually my understanding is correct, that they would have written some sort of grand conclusion to it, and not that there couldn't be more content made
Right.
prior to that ending time or something.
I mean, I would actually be interested in that too, because there's a lot of, I mean, that brings up, like, does the Emperor return? Like, does Chaos win? What happens to? There's a lot of, like, what about all the craft worlds? Which, I mean, some of that is, as far as I've read recently, is all ongoing in the Psychic Awakening, but I don't know if there is already some other grand conclusion outside of that. I don't know. I'd be interested to see what it was, and
yeah, I'll have to look up the article and I'll send it to you. I don't remember exactly where it was now. I think probably PC Gamer or something like that.
I mean, to kind of answer the question, though, I'm definitely more 40K than Fantasy Battle. Both lore and just it's cool aliens. They got cool aliens. They got cool guns. Like, that's awesome to me. But I don't know. I just like certain content in certain ways. Like, I definitely appreciate a good, like, I like a good sci-fi movie. Like, Avatar was fine, but, like, I want a fantasy movie that is not Lord of the Rings. I want the fantasy that is Star Wars in a fantasy setting. Like,
right.
Instead of Jedi, give me wizards, and do that, and have wizards versus wizards, because, like, there's not a lot. There's, like, the epic battle of Saruman and Gandalf, but, like, that's it. There's no,
and it's not really
I want counterspell. I want fireballs. I want raining meteors. Like, just the magic of Hearthstone, like Wall of Fire, Blizzard. Like any.
Yeah, or like in Diablo, like the witch doctor that has the, like, AoE pool of hands that comes up,
or jars of spiders, or giant spiders that come out of the ground, and, like, I want that in a grand movie scene, and I want I want the awesome, space battles of Star Wars in my PC games. Like,